Good evening and welcome to the Greenfield Public Schools School Committee meeting for Wednesday, August 11, 2021. The time is 6 p.m. We're at the Johns On Community Center at 35 Pleasant Street in Greenfield. If you are fully vaccinated, you're not required, oh, you are required to wear a mask. Things change in the world of COVID. We have new requirements. If you're here with us, we ask that everyone, it's recommended that you wear a mask while you're here. So let's move right into the agenda. The roll call, please. Secretary Johnson-Musad.
Member Karen?
Here.
Vice Chair Ekstrom? Member Hollins?
Here.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, I'm here. Chair Poyetti?
I'm here.
Member Wall?
Here.
Mayor Wiedegardner?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. I do need a motion to change the order of the agenda. We would like to actually move the executive session that was planned for the next item to the end of the meeting. So it would be moved from item 2 down to item 8. Yeah. Can I have a motion as such?
So move.
Member Wall, and a second. That was Member Holland, so quietly. Let's see, any discussion on that?
Do we need to move item 3 as well, or just 2?
I think we just need to, item 3 will be taken up at the next meeting, likely next week. So,
when we get to that, we can move to table it or whatever.
yeah, I think that'll work. Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you, Secretary Johnson-Musad. Let's do a voice vote. Anyone opposed to this change? Any abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes unanimously, and we'll do we will do an executive session for exemption reason number 3. I said I was going to take my mask off. Here we go. Exemption reason number 3 at the end of the meeting, and we will not return for a public vote. Let's do the approval of the minutes.
Should we, just to be formal, should we move to table number
Thank
item
you.
number 3?
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
This is a motion to table item number 3, the vote on the custodian maintenance contract. I believe we'll take it up next week, which would be on the 18th. Did I get a second?
Second.
Member Karen with the second. Any discussion of that? Okay, we'll do another voice vote. Any abstentions? Any no votes? So that'll be tabled for the next meeting. Thank you. And let's do the approval of the minutes. The agenda says they're from 7/14, 8/4, and I believe there's also 7/29 in there. Is that what everyone else sees? I know I reviewed 3 sets.
729, is this correct, what's listed? That's what I have.
7/14,
Yep.
29.
I have July 29 after that.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. So the agenda only has the
August 4th.
14th and August 4th. The 29th is missing from the agenda.
Oh,
No?
we have it. So
My
let's see if
agenda
we can
says
take
that.
Yeah, remember?
Oh, it's the posted agenda that
Yeah.
I'm looking at, not the one that's in front of me. Sorry for the confusion, everyone. So it was updated, so folks following at home would have an updated agenda. I just do not, but that's okay. I'm just the chair. So is everyone okay? We'll do this as a consent. You can still make any comment or have questions or corrections about any of the sets of minutes. We'll just vote on them all together and have discussion all together. So could I get a motion to approve the minutes for 7/14, 7/29, and 8/4 school committee meetings?
I move to approve the minutes of July 14, July 29, and August 4th, 2021.
Member Hollins, and a second.
Second.
That was Secretary Johnson-Musad. And any comment?
Comment.
Dr. Houle, and then Member Hollins.
Madam Chair, on the July 14th minutes on page 3, under the summer work of the interim superintendent's report, The acronym for ESSER is ESSER, which stands for Elementary and Secondary Safety and Emergency Relief Fund. So just,
Oh, just a spelling
yeah, there's,
clarification.
two S's in the acronym.
You see where that is, Susan Farber? Okay, thank you. And Member Hollins?
Yes, on July 14, page 2, the discussion of Green River School, there's 3, 6, and 8 bullets. And the one I don't see that's in my notes is that the expense not come from the operating budget.
Under the discussion bullets you're talking
Yeah,
about. We did discuss that. I think that makes sense to add that back in. Thank you. Was there anything else related to any of the 3 sets of minutes?
I sort of have a procedural question. I was not in attendance for the August 4th meeting, so I don't have a problem with those, but
You
do I
can
just
still vote.
vote yes?
Yeah.
Okay,
You can still vote.
thank you.
Thank you for asking. Any other questions? So let's do a vote. We'll do again a voice vote. Any no votes on approving the minutes? Any abstentions? And the yes is, oh, you're abstaining from the minutes. You can still vote. Yeah, that's what Katie just asked too. You can still vote. Yeah. Do you vote, you're okay with voting yes? All right. So that's unanimous yes for approving the minutes.
With the noted changes.
Thank you, with the noted changes. We're into public comment, and it looks like we do have some public comment tonight. Because we're in person, we only offer the in-person public comment. You do have to step up to the mic there, don't be afraid. So as we discussed, it's 3 minutes. Please give us your full name and the town that you live in, and if you want, you can remove your mask while you're speaking. Thank you. It'll turn green.
Sure.
This is not for us here, this is for the folks who are watching at home so they can hear it.
Okay, does this work? I'm Mariah Kurtz, I'm a Greenfield resident. Is this, I don't know. It's not on, I don't think. I'm a Greenfield resident. My husband and I applied to have an exchange student from Germany live with us for the fall semester, which is September through January, mid-January. Her name's Louise. We think it would be a really great opportunity, not only for our family, but also for the students in the school and our community at large. So we're requesting that the school board consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for being with us. Any other public comment from the other person that's here? You're good? She's got you covered? All right. Okay, and I am guessing item 6, report from student representatives to the committee. Have they taken the summer off, our student representatives? I think they may have.
They have. They'll be back in September for you.
Now, I do have to ask, will they both be back? Do you know?
Danny
Dan-
graduated, so, and they vote, they have a student council retreat this Sunday, so they'll vote on who the student reps are for the year.
Oh, that's how
I
it
know
works.
Shane is still interested, so,
Yes.
but they do vote on who that will be, and I think their meeting is Sunday, so you'll have some notice from Ms. Mass as to who will be doing it for the year.
Excellent. All right, a highlight of the meeting, so I look forward to that. Thank you. Assistant Superintendent Patnode. Now that, let's say that 4 times fast. Okay, so a note on our reports from the administration. The first report, the school business manager, Andy asked if he could kindly be here next week because he was triple booked, I think, for this time. And Andy is so flexible with us, we're allowing flexibility for him as well. So he will report to us. We are meeting again next Wednesday because we can't get enough of meetings. So we're on to, I put my mask back on, sorry. We're on to the report on grade 8 civics projects from Assistant Superintendent Patnode.
Thank you. You have in your packet my extended update along with some samples of the 8th grade civics projects from this year, so I hope you get a chance to read all the materials that were sent, and I hope the folks at home do. Our class of 2025, which was our 8th grade, we are very proud of for actually implementing the first civics projects under the new curriculum for history in 8th grade in a pandemic and remotely, and really doing a nice job of it. I do want to highlight a few of the items, though. I really want to thank Ms. Zimmerman and Mr. Leeper, who were the civics teachers in 8th grade, because they made this happen. Along with some of the explanation that was given, though, especially for the folks at home, I just thought Ms. Zimmerman's words really resonated as to what this project meant and how these new standards and this curriculum is really impacting our students and what they can be in this world. So she quotes, I quote Ms. Zimmerman, she says, "Through all of this research, my students gained a new perspective on the issue, and their issue was homelessness." When you read through the packet, you'll see that they think that's a big issue in Greenfield that they want to pay attention to, and the possible ways that local government can have an impact. I'm very proud of their thoughtful responses and newly acquired knowledge about the role and power of government in affecting change. I believe that many of them will go on to become better informed citizens who take an active role in their community. And many of the students, you'll see through their comments and their letters to the mayor and to the city council that they agree with her, and we're really proud of all the work that they did. I'll go just quickly through the rest of my report. In a little bit of a month on the job, I wanted to update all of you as to what I've been undertaking and trying to get moving on. In my first week, I met with each principal of all of our schools to really get a handle on what's going on in each building. And while I worked at the high school for 7 years and had some experience at the middle school, I wanted to get to know AEL and the elementary schools really in depth, what they need, what they think their students need, what they need in terms of curriculum and development, supporting staff, as well as aligning assessments, formative and summative, and really getting some data analysis under our belts. So those were really thoughtful conversations with all of them, and we're going to work hard together to really align Greenfield's curriculum so that all of our students have an equitable access to curriculum and have success in the future. I've also been working on some grants, so while ESER 1 and ESER 2 have been filed, the new superintendent, Dr. DeBarge, and I will be filing ESER 3, and that position has allowed us, that grant has allowed us to promote some positions of coaches and interventionists. So each elementary school is going to have an ELA and math coach / interventionist, and the middle school is also going to have a math coach. The middle school also has 2 Title I reading interventionists who are going to be working as part of the team. So we've been working on hiring people for those positions. There's been a lot of internal movement where some candidates really strong in our system are moving up to leadership positions. So we're really excited that they have the opportunity to do that in district. Also working on our mentor and mentee program. We're always excited to welcome new teachers to Greenfield, and I know we're going to talk about the job fair a little later, but we still do have some positions open, so I just want to plug that as well for those who might know someone that knows someone to get them to Greenfield and be part of our wonderful team. So we're working with some of the mentor resources where the First Year Matters and Mentoring in Action, but we credit Dr. Houle with exposing us to the Success Criteria Playbook and the Teacher Clarity Playbook, and we're really going to provide our new teachers with these hands-on guides to create focused learning intentions and success criteria and really keep track of how we know students are learning what we hope they're learning and how we measure success. And then, obviously, curriculum needs much attention in this district, and I've been working with the middle school and the elementary schools. They are piloting programs in the middle school, and they're listed in your packet. The elementary school is going to use Eureka this year again. Along with the math coaches and interventionists, we're going to meet twice a month and really review the data, review what teachers need in terms of coaching and modeling of instruction. We're going to look at reviewing with DESE for high-quality ELA instruction. So K through 7, hopefully, we'll have new ELA curriculum by the end of the year where we can pilot again. And obviously, this work is going to be continued to be collaborative, ongoing, and constantly evolving, but it's been very exciting for me in the month that I've undertaken all of this, but really looking forward to continuing all of this. So, thank you.
I think it's good now. Yeah, thank you, Philippe. I think it's good now. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Pat Node. I'm gonna have to practice that one in the shower at home. Do we have questions or discussion? Mayor Wiedegartner for the Assistant Superintendent, go ahead.
I'm going to say, yeah, you have to go off. I just wanted to commend Ms. Zimmerman and the district for the civics class. As we all have learned, it's very much needed in our schools. So I'm delighted to see that the first class happened, and the product was several letters to me. and the issue is very, very important. So I've read all the letters. I was very impressed with how thoughtful they were and how well articulated, point by point, argument by argument. So I was pleased about that. I can't say that I will get around to answering every one of them, but I'll probably be sending something along to Ms. Zimmerman, and if she sees them as ninth graders, she can pass it on. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions or discussion? Secretary Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
I'll just say I'm just breathing a sigh of relief. It's so glad to have you on for a month, and the conversations you're having are so important. And it makes me really happy as a school committee member to hear that the curriculum work is moving forward with you watching over it. And I wonder if there were any trends that you heard listening to different principals of all the different schools. Were there any kind of themes that kind of came across to you?
I think overall the theme is we're just very excited to be unified and working towards the same goal, and really trying to come together, not in our silos. I think for too long we felt that way. We're doing individualistic work in buildings, and it's really nice, I think, just to be able to collaborate and know that with me as a point person now, that we can get this team together. And then once Christine's on board, and we thank Judy for all of her guidance and leadership thus far, and just really are excited that we're all, as I quote Judy, we're all rowing in the same direction, and we're really excited about that and where it's going to lead us.
Any other comments? I would just echo all of that. It's so great to have you on board. The homelessness issue is what I'm so glad they chose that. It's a really critical one for us to be aware of and sensitive to in Greenfield. And it affects our students too. In my job my full-time job at Greenfield Community College, I actually am the person that does outreach with the local high schools, including Greenfield, when a student is homeless or their family is homeless, when they're transitioning to college. And it's a topic that is in need of a lot of different awareness than we give it as a society. So how awesome to have those 8th graders out there and kind of in tune with it. That's terrific. Thank you for this excellent report. No other questions or comments? Okay, so we will move on to a report from the interim superintendent, Dr. Houle.
Thank you, Chair Parietti. As Assistant Superintendent Pat Node, that is a mouthful, reported that the senior leadership team is really gelling. We spent 6 hours together today, doing a lot of really good work, really thoughtful conversations on the part of all of the administrators. So it was a tiring but a fun day, for me anyway. I don't know about for them. You'll have to ask Karen later. But one of the things we did, we had 2 days. We had a day in July and the day today. One of the things that we did in July was we took a look at some of our past MCAS data and looked at trends over time, and looked at a couple of other data points. And what really struck us as we reviewed the data is the fact that Greenfield seems to consistently lag behind the state in the percentage of students who meet and exceed the state on MCAS benchmarks. And not that the MCAS is the end-all be-all, but some of our other data point in that same direction. The other thing that we noticed was that the scores have remained somewhat stagnant over time, that we really haven't been able to move that needle. So as we talked together, we really realized the need for being able to get teachers together to collaborate. And when you've got grade level teachers, particularly at the elementary school, who are spread out across 3 schools, there's really no time for them to gather together. So as we were looking at the schedule for the upcoming year, we chose not to go with the extended learning time grant. And the reason for that was twofold. Number one was the data themselves, and we noticed that in the 2 schools where there is extended learning time, that extended learning time was not moving the needle either. So what it tells us is that there's something wrong that we need to fix. And having been in this business for a very long time, that's all I'll say, this usually points to a curriculum and/or an instructional issue. And so having Karen on board to be able to shepherd that process along after school is really the only time that teachers have to be able to collaborate with one another. So we felt it was more important for teachers to get together to do the work, to improve instructional practices, to move the needle with curriculum, and hopefully move the needle for outcomes for students. So we are working with community partners to try and put some alternatives in place for after-school care for students. We haven't confirmed all of that yet, but we're working towards that end. And the other thing, too, that really began to weigh on us a little bit, we've talked a lot about equity this summer, and to have 2 schools have funding for an extra learning activity and the other schools not have that funding, we just felt like there was a real sense of inequity there. And so to be able to, have this thoughtful conversation about curriculum and instructional practice, we feel that that's probably going to move the needle for student learning. So that's why. So the high school and the middle school are going to have a common start and end time this year. This past spring, we had a rather lengthy wait in the terms of the average middle schooler on buses coming from the high school into the middle school in the morning, which is not the best solution on the planet. So what's going to happen is both schools will start at 7:30 and end at 2:10. Half the buses will start at the middle school and do what they need to do. Half the buses will start at the high school, do what they need to do, flip, and then the runs will take care of itself. When I was in Belchertown, we did this with 21 buses, and it worked like a charm, so 8 buses should not be a problem. So that way, that also allows for middle and high school teachers, particularly grades 7 and 8, to be able to have some collaboration time because they'll be able to gather together to do that work. Pre-K through 4 schedule will also be common among the schools as it has been this past year, 8:30 to 2:55. And again, that allows for teachers to be able to get together after school for some meeting time to really begin this collaboration process that is so desperately needed. So I think that this is going to be a win-win for the district to be able to do that. That said, we're still working on, some outside of school care options that we'll hopefully be able to offer along with some community partners to families in town, because we do recognize that need as well. So that's one thing that we've been working on. So the COVID-19 ever-evolving situation, I think it's our new normal, that we have to learn to be resilient and flexible. And so Chair Proietti and I attended the Board of Health meeting on Monday night, where they were rightfully concerned at that point. They were looking at 1 week of 0 cases and the next week 12 cases and now up to 14. So wearing masks and being as distant as we are in this room right now, was of concern to them, as was what was going to happen in schools. The Commissioner of Education has come out to say that staff and students in grades K through 6 should be fully masked, but that it would be unvaccinated and vaccinated. You know, if you're unvaccinated, you should wear it if you're in grade 7 through 12, and if you're not vaccinated, you can take them off. I truly think that puts an undue burden on administration and teachers to police that. And how do you say to a 16-year-old, you're unvaccinated, you need to wear a mask, and you're not, you can take yours off? And I think it makes for an untenable situation. So you currently have a masking policy that requires masks for all students in pre-K through 12, with the exception of extenuating circumstances, and that change that we did, you know, to accommodate outdoors and being able to take them off with the distancing requirements. So it is policy EBCFA, for those who at home are curious, and it is up on the website. So my recommendation is that since it is still in force, I would recommend that you do that. CDC came out on August 4th with an update saying that they recommend mask wearing grades K through 12. So I think at some point we'll probably see that out of Massachusetts as well. So I think it's a good direction to continue on. So I certainly would just recommend sort of status quo with regard to that. The second thing is the issue of COVID testing. And in the middle of our we watched a webinar from the state on this very topic today that was put together by Associate Commissioner Russell Johnston. And I took some notes, so I'll just talk about a little bit what's going on with that. What they're doing now is putting out an enhanced program for testing, which they are calling the routine COVID safety check. And basically what they're talking about is symptomatic testing as being the first line of defense, that if someone is demonstrating symptoms, that they be tested with what's known as the Binax Now test, which is the rapid response test. And then they are not recommending isolation. They're recommending a process called, and we heard about this at the Board of Health, and this clarified this for me, a protocol called Test and Stay, which is, rather than isolate students who are in close contact, that they would do Binax testing for at least 5 days in a row. And if they are consistently negative, then they don't go home and there's not a loss of learning time. So that would be the second protocol that's in place. The third is then some sort of routine pooled testing, and there are two forms of that, and we need to have a discussion around that, and certainly we'll take feedback from the committee. But one is to do what we have been doing, which is the weekly pool test. If the pool comes back positive, there's a Binax run on everybody that's in the pool to figure out who the positive person is, and then protocols take place from there. But there's also another one called an in-lab test, which is basically when you do the pool test, you do 2 samples. So you take 2 samples from everybody in the pool, so that one goes in the tube together, the second one is kept aside. All of it goes to the lab. If one comes positive, the lab does the test on the pool to find and isolate the student or the adult who might be positive. So there wasn't a whole lot of one way or another, you know, push to do one or the other, but they said that those 2 options would be available to school districts. The state has contracted with a company called CIC Health and is going to offer this program to all schools free of charge. So the symptomatic testing, and whether or not you use the traditional pool test or you use the lab version of it, but that this is sort of an under the umbrella of the routine COVID safety check. They are going to do things like, they are going to do some protocols around all of this and do yet another webinar next week on all of that business, so that we'll have that whole thing. CIC, it will provide logistical support on site, again, at no cost to the district, which is a great thing. They'll be providing the materials for testing. They'll order all the Binax stuff. They'll help with collection. They'll help with, there'll be an online platform that all of this will go through, which we used this past year. I guess they're just updating the software so that as soon as the results come out, you can go in and see what's happening with the pools. They are willing to supply a relationship manager. They will cover the shipping and courier services to get the samples to the lab, and all of that business. So one of the things that they were talking about too was to redo the required consent form and to ask families to consent to the 3 modalities of the symptomatic testing, the test and stay, and then both either the traditional pool testing or the in-lab, just in case, you want to change protocols midway through. So it would be to get the permission out of the gate. I know a lot of families provided permission last year, but they're asking people to redo it so that we have a clear thing. They also are talking about getting districts to host on-site vaccine clinics that would be free. They would be either the Pfizer or the J&J. That would be open to 12 to 17-year-olds. No ID will be required. No proof of insurance will be required. The only thing will be parent guardian consent for 12 to 17-year-olds. So they're really working very hard to keep mitigation strategies in place to keep vaccinating people and to providing that to schools, again, at no charge, so that way in-person learning can continue on. So it was, I thought, pretty informative today in terms of what they're doing. And then the Shaw Family Foundation, they also have a partnership with them who is providing a lot of logistical support to the state as well, and some materials that will go out to families. The permission forms will be in multiple languages, so families whose first language is not English will be able to access the permission and the materials in the language that they speak in the home, the primary language. So they've really done a lot to make this whole sort of safety protocol work well. And then the USDA has also continued the free meals program for the upcoming school year. So that will be continuing on in place, which is a great thing as well. So we're pleased about those things that are being done in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which just keeps to seem to ever evolve. And looks like this will be the new normal, that we'll just have to learn to be flexible and resilient moving forward. As, again, Karen mentioned, we're still looking for positions in the district. It's not unusual to have movement at this time of the year, so it's not any cause for alarm, but we just thought we would take it to the streets. And so next Monday, drive by the middle school and you'll see people out on the front lawn with balloons and all of that good thing, trying to, see if we can add to our staff, particularly like instructional assistants and, substitutes and teachers as well, because we're still looking to fill some vacancies. So that will be happening next Monday. And as you heard earlier this evening, just moving on through the report, there is a request that did come to my attention to place an exchange student at Greenfield High School. I did do a fair amount of digging before I brought this forward to the committee because I wasn't sure where all of this stood. You currently don't have any policy around all of this, so I checked in with legal counsel, and legal counsel said it's pretty much driven by statute, so I did forward the materials to him. He did look them over, and he did say that it looked like everything was in order in terms of visas and all of that kind of business. So certainly we could place a student quite easily at the high school. I don't know that it really needs your vote, but absent a policy, I just wanted to make sure that I's were dotted and T's were crossed. So I'll work with Mr. Cavallo to get that process started to get the student enrolled at Greenfield High School. Then the third item on my list is that we need to have you vote to declare 2 copiers as surplus property. Actually, is it 3? Hold on. Nope. Guess it's 2 right now. Anyway, we have one at central office and is over 14 years old. That is now sitting in a side room, and has not been used. It can't be used, so it needs to be disposed of. And there's also one in the high school guidance office that's in the same condition, that's over 14 years old. So in order to begin the disposal process, I'm just asking for the school committee to vote to declare them surplus property. You want to do that now, later?
Is that the end of your report?
Not quite.
Let's have your whole report, and then we'll do a bunch
Okay.
of stuff. Okay.
And just, the last thing is that the transition, between Dr. DeBarge and myself is going very well. You know, it's very smooth. Last, Sunday, I said I was coming up in the afternoon because my office looked like a whirlwind had gone through it, and I needed to go through paper, and she said, "Do you want a buddy?" And I said, "Sure." So we drove up together, had a good conversation in the car, and then as we were going through paperwork, "Hi, you want to read this? You want to look at that? You want me to put this in a folder for you for later on?" So it was a good afternoon of me being able to clean out and for her to, and to get her up to speed on some things. So we did do that process, and I think the transition is going to be pretty seamless, and I think there's great things ahead for you. I really do.
Excellent. Is that the end of your report? It is. So I think let's hold off on the motions just for a second. You had a report chock full of information, so I know I have a couple of questions. So let's do that part first, and then we'll do the motions that we need. I'll open it up to the other school committee members first who have questions or comments. Member Karen, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. You mentioned that you were looking into after-school situations with community partners. Are you also looking for before school, or is that going to still be offered? Those were usually just done by our buildings, so that's what I was asking.
Yep, and right now, we're trying to take a look at how that was actually funded within the budget, because if it was within the general fund, that could be problematic. So, you know, we're just trying to determine what the funding sources were in the past, and then whether or not we can pull something off. I think, based on what I've heard from people anecdotally, I would say that, you know, some sort of more organized offering would be a wise idea to do with students if that's feasible. But we're just looking at the financial viability, because my understanding, or what I have learned, is that the program was offered for free and paid for by the district, and we're just trying to unpack where that lives in the budget plan, so.
Other questions, comments? Member Hollins, go ahead.
I don't know if it's required, but I think when the time comes for motion, I'll suggest we approve the foreign exchange student. I just seem to remember that whenever we've had a student come who's not a resident, the school committee has approved it. And first, I really appreciate the report and all the work you've done. I have a question about the extended learning time grant. My recollection is Greenfield has studied this grant program a couple of times, asked parents what they think. And the reason we had it to begin with, it was here before I worked for the district, but the reason we had it is that we had such high poverty in a couple of schools, and it was an enrichment program to give students living in poverty the type of enrichments that students in more enriched families had. So I was just wondering the process of deciding to end the grant, if parents, or how the teachers and parents, it just strikes me that we're going to act on 2 old computers, but an $800,000 grant goes away. And I would just appreciate knowing a little more about the process of deciding to
Sure.
end the grant. I don't know if anyone else is interested, but
Yeah.
it's a really big program here, so.
I think that talking to teachers and also the middle school and talking to families, there's not a whole lot of interest, particularly at the middle school level, in continuing with the program, either on the teacher side or on the family side. So I think that's some of what drove this, is sort of a waning interest in the program. That said, we're taking a look at, Art Space, who has been in the schools doing programs for strings and things like that, those kinds of programs would continue to be offered. And those programs, we discovered, have been paid historically out of school choice. So again, this year, we're turning money back to the state on the extended learning time grant, and I think a lot of it is due to COVID, but it's just, we're just really struggling to find enrichment opportunities. Summer programming was offered by the middle school and also by, Newton Street in terms of some of the offerings for students this summer, but wasn't a lot of takers either in those programs. We're just not seeing the interest that may have been there. It doesn't mean you can never apply for the grant again. You certainly could do that, but we just felt that at this particular juncture in time, our teachers really need the time desperately to be able to come together and do the work that needs to be done. So that was the thinking behind that.
Thank you. Secretary Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think that's really the strongest argument, that the teachers need the time to collaborate and work together. And if extended learning time is not of that great interest to the community, and they can use that time to enhance the curriculum and whatnot. I think the issue about equity, and sometimes if you think of, one of the images in my work around equity is of children trying to look over a fence to see a ball game, but they're on a slanted hill, and so some children will need that extra boost that other children won't need, and so that they can all be kind of seeing over this fence. So I guess from that perspective, just the fact that the program isn't offered equally in all schools does not necessarily mean it's not equitable in terms of, like, as you've talked about before, giving each student what they need. But I really think the argument that the teachers need the time to collaborate makes a lot of sense. And maybe with COVID and other items as well, the interest in the program has changed. I'd like to learn more about what parents and families are thinking about the extended learning time. Thank you.
Could I ask one follow-up?
I saw Member Karen's hand first, and then Member Hollins, go ahead.
It's possible that she's going to ask this question too. I am for the decision. I just was also sort of surprised that we hadn't heard about it. And when I was being approached by parents saying, oh, we don't have extended learning time, and I didn't know that, I felt a little taken aback. So really my question is procedural. Is that standard that we wouldn't hear about that sort of a thing ahead of time? I'm not meaning to sound accusatory at all.
No. And
There's a lot of things I need to hear, so it's possible.
And I apologize for that. I think that there was a sharing of information before I had a chance to get to all of you. I had a chance to chat with the chair before, the deadline was about to pass. And then before I had a chance to get to you, I understood it was out on the street. So I think that was just a snafu internally around communication, because it is never my intent to surprise the committee. So I apologize for that.
Member Hollins, go ahead.
My follow-up was about Newton School. Were the teachers there also not interested? Because we would have had the opportunity to, I think there's only 18 schools in the state that had been picked for this, but I think there was the opportunity to not have it at one school but continue at another. I'm just interested if the Newton School people also didn't want the grant.
The program, because the program really did not happen at all this year, except for, some summer programming, and just looking at the summer program, there was, some interest at the middle school, but really the interest at Newton School for even the summer programming was really not there on the part of teachers or on the part of families. We were doing some Title I programming right now, and some extended learning time for Newton School. But the interest just does not seem to be there, and I don't know whether it's, COVID-related or whatever it is. And sometimes with some of these things, sometimes you need a hiatus, and then you go back to it later, and there's a renewed interest, and maybe that's what's going on, the interest just doesn't seem to be that present at the moment.
Thank you. You guys good? I just have a couple of things. Thank you for the update on early and late care. I've been getting a lot of questions from families that are very stressed. And then to hear, I think it was a combination of what are we going to do about early and late care? And then for those that are middle school or Newton, to then hear the extended learning was also not happening without us having the proper communication in place. It created a lot of questions. I don't care about that. I didn't like extended learning as a parent specifically. I don't have that much experience with it as a school committee member, but my kid hated it, and as a parent, I wasn't a big fan of it, so that's fine with me. The pool testing, you mentioned that the USDA program for food would go the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Pool testing will be paid for by the state for the whole year, as far as you know?
Yes.
Okay.
That was reiterated several times during the webinar, that this will be at no cost to school districts.
Wonderful. And then, of course, parents that are worried about having all their stuff signed and in before the forms are even sent home are already asking me, it sounds like we will require a new consent form for pool testing for
Yes.
kids who were in district
Right.
last year, too.
Right.
Great. All right, so we're good on, thank you for that. We're good
Welcome.
on questions and comments. So we have at least two motions. So a motion to approve the enrollment of a German exchange student at Greenfield High School for the 21-22 academic year.
So moved.
Second. Right, okay, we got. Oh, thank you. Amended, fall semester. Member Hollins and Mayor Weidergartner was the second.
Member Wall.
Sorry. We've all got our masks on and I can't tell. Any discussion of that? Wonderful opportunity, right?
Yeah, great.
And any abstentions or no votes on that? So that's unanimous. A yes, so excellent. They took me up on it and they left. They didn't even get to hear the exciting part. And then a motion to dispose of the two copiers, one at central office, one at Greenfield High School, that are surplus property and no longer in use.
So moved. Oh, second.
That was the mayor, followed by Secretary Johnson-Musad.
I was very enthusiastic
That
about
might have been the most exciting point of the meeting yet. I don't know. I swear we tested all of them, but I don't know. Okay, so we had the motion. Any discussion of that? They're only 14 years old? You can squeeze another year out of them? I don't think that's how this works. You're on the hook for that one. All right, any no votes on the copiers? Any abstentions? So that also passes unanimously. And thank you both for those reports and that information, all the work you're doing. We appreciate it. Dr. Hooley got one more meeting left with us. One more next week. All right, so we're on to the school committee reports.
Sorry, do we don't need a vote on which type of testing we're going to go with? How will that decision be made? Where it's
Standard or the in-lab, is that?
Yeah, I don't know that we know enough right now about the advantages of one over the other to even be able to make that kind of decision. I think we need to see what the protocols are that are associated with this. And then I think we'll have a better handle on that. It will be a pretty quick turnaround to get the paperwork in to be a part of the program. So we'll keep you updated as things unfold.
Thank you. Okay, so school committee reports. I have a very short report related to, as it states on the agenda, TMS, contract extension. Look, I even took notes about what I need to do. Anyone who knows me knows I am not a note taker. If I don't put these in my pocket after the meeting, they'll be gone by tomorrow, so, okay. So I have started the process a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, with Laura Phelps on getting the TMS contract renewed. This is our business manager services for those following along at home. We are going to, and I've also talked to Andy, who is the current business manager. We're going to extend that contract for another year with TMS as a business manager. That allows us some time to adjust to having Dr. DeBarge on board, who, by the way, is familiar with TMS. She also works with them currently in her current job, her current district. And we will do the same sort of clause with the month-to-month 30-day notice allowed to cancel. And the pieces we will look to continue and put into the contract and make sure this is all kosher with how it's set up and the spending is the special ed consultancy that we're doing currently with Dr. Ekstrom, not to be confused with Member Ekstrom, and then the communications consultation as well. And those will be all a part of a combination of requests for proposals and some documentation explaining why we're doing it this way and what it gets us as a district. So that is my update. Are there questions about TMS? Member Hollins and then Secretary Johnson-Musad.
I have two questions. Consultant Ekstrom, I think in the beginning was going to give us a report on special ed in the district, and I was looking forward to the report before the whole system changed so we could understand the thinking, but I don't think we've seen the report. That was one question. And the second was, at what rate will we be contracting for business manager services? Because I think we voted one rate and we were paying a different rate, so I'd like to clarify that.
Okay, you and I can clarify that offline because I know that's been explained several times. So I'll explain it again to you later. Because of the timing of the previous contract, they were working for us for a number of months before they were actually on contract. The amount of the contract was slightly different than it would have been for month to month. We will work on this as a month-to-month contract. The rate, I think it's 10.5, 9.5, 9,500 a month, yeah. And that's what it would have been under the contract last year as well. Yep, and Member Johnson-Musad, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wonder, I mean, at what point do we start to look at bringing some of these services in-house again? I guess maybe with this new superintendent, but I just think, in general, if we can attract and retain the talent that we need in-house, why not, versus working with consultants? Not that TMS hasn't been wonderful, but I just really would like to see us build that capacity in district.
Yes. So I do think that is something that we definitely need for the permanent superintendent to be here before we have that discussion. So that's why the decision was made to give a year for us to put something into place. And to be honest, as I've said too, since I got into this position, I'm very interested in working with the city on ways that we can consolidate operations, things like the copier, that type of stuff very potentially could be in some ways combined. We've started to talk about other places where we can streamline and combine services, and this is one. So before we go out and search for a business manager, we would want to actually know what they're doing. We would want to make sure that we got someone who is certified for purchasing, the MCPPO, look at me, right? So those discussions are happening, and I do believe this will be an interesting process for us, because I think that our school committee is likely of two minds on a business manager. I think there are folks who are very happy to continue with TMS, and I think there's an interest in also having a permanent business manager. So as we go along this year, we need to kind of look at that. And when I look at what TMS has provided us compared to what I saw as a business manager when I first started on the school committee, it's really hard for me to want to look for a business manager. So perspective is everything in a conversation like this. Had I started with, some other different scenario, I might think really differently about it. So that's how I would answer that question right now. But the way that we're proceeding with TMS allows us the flexibility to make decisions that are best for the district at any point. Member Hollins, go ahead.
I just want to understand that we're extending the contract for up to a year, but it's month to month, so we could get out of it if we made a different
With a
decision.
30-day notice. It's always been that way. Yep.
Okay.
Mayor Rita Gardner.
I just wanted to say I tend to agree with Glenn that at a point in the future, we should have a Greenfield Public Schools business manager. But combining or exploring the opportunity to combine or share business management services with the city does not preclude us from having a business manager at Greenfield Public Schools. That would probably be useful to have a business manager who can communicate with the finance director on separate and also combined services. So that's good. I think other places where we are looking at combining or sharing, so not instead of duplicating our technology and
Central maintenance, potentially, yeah.
has always been, well, right.
Yeah,
More solidified.
yeah. It does become more complicated when we're talking about folks that are unionized, so, yeah, to look at the IT and the business services first for that kind of makes it a little bit simpler of a conversation. Secretary Dunstan-Musad, go ahead.
Just that, overall, I think the services from TMS have been great, the interim superintendent, the business manager, Dr. Ekstrom. I think the communications director, I've had both things that I see that are positive, and I have shared some issues of concern or desires for growth. So that's just another area I'm kind of keeping an eye on and hoping that, we can keep examining that together.
Sure, thank you. Anything else on TMS? I don't have any further report, so what other subcommittees? I feel like I've lost all track of subcommittees. I'm sorry. Has any subcommittee met? No.
Not recently, no.
Okay. And I know there are a couple of things that we want to set times. So budget and finance is one, and then health, safety, and facilities is another that we want to set times and dates for upcoming meetings. Why don't we do a... Please excuse the technical difficulties. Okay, so let's start with, we do need a budget meeting. I'm going to set this in the absence of Vice Chair Ekstrom, since she is the chair of Budget and Finance. And I'd like to look 2 weeks out, conscious of the fact that that would be the first week that the new superintendent is here. We have usually met, on Thursday mornings, is that right? I think it was Thursday mornings. So what I'd like to do is tentatively set.
I'm just wondering if you all might want to huddle after the meeting, since that is something you can discuss without it being part of the full committee's business.
Noted, that's noted, Secretary Johnson-Musad, so we'll go after the meeting, we'll do that, all right. I just kind of wanted to get it done and check it off the list, but it's true, we can save time doing it that way. So we'll do that, as well as the health and safety and facilities meeting date and time after the executive session. Okay, so now we're on to policy and program, right? Am I in the right place on the, yes.
Yes.
And the updated policy on student discipline, I will introduce this, and Dr. Houle, you fill in if I miss anything. So we didn't have an updated policy. We had one that was really old,
Yes.
and we had a review, right, of our policies as part of our visit.
We did.
I don't remember which visit it was.
This is the targeted focused monitoring visit.
Monitoring,
Yeah.
yes. I was going to say audit, but it's just a different, it's the same but different,
Yeah,
right?
review is what they call it.
A review. Okay, and so we are being asked to tonight update the policy, and it is in the packet that was distributed with the materials for tonight, JIC. It is a draft update, and we would like to, at this time, so that it can be in place, have a waiving of the second reading and push
The
this.
first reading.
It was a 50-50 on that one. Waiving of the first
Waive the
reading.
sixth reading.
I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
You're doing fine.
So it is in the packet. Hopefully you've had a chance, members, to look at it before tonight or before right now. And I would start with a motion to approve policy JIC on student discipline as updated.
So moved.
That was member Karen, and a second. Second from Mayor Weidergartner, and discussion on this. Member Hollins.
I had a couple of wording suggestions, questions, but I want to say that our policy on policy allows us to adopt something the first time and bring it back, to start, to continue to not look at things twice doesn't allow time for thinking about it. And this is about student expulsion. This is really one of the most important policies we have for students. When are people excluded? And I think it should have, we want to vote it in tonight, but it should come back, and that's our policy, because this is one of the most important policies we have. We're talking about excluding people from school, and we should all know what's in it. But anyway, I have two specific questions. On the first page, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth paragraph, the superintendent shall provide each principal with a copy of the regulations promulgated by DESE. It doesn't say what kind of regulations.
There are regulations that are in the Massachusetts Code that accompany, this is literally from the law, this policy.
Are they disciplinary regulations or?
Yes, they are DESE regulations.
For discipline?
Yes.
Okay, so I would suggest that that be added, because there's gazillion kinds of regulations. And on the second page.
Hold on, it does say that they're DESE regulations,
Yeah,
right
but it
in the
doesn't-
paragraph.
There's hundreds of kinds of DESE regulations. I was just hoping it would say what type of regulations. It's disciplinary regulations.
But it's a policy on discipline.
So far, I haven't heard any motion to amend anything or,
Okay.
revise anything, so it's, so
My
far it's just
second-
sharing of comments.
My second comment is on the principal's hearing on the second page. The hearing with the principals shall be to hear and consider information regarding the alleged incident and provide the student an opportunity to dispute. There's two issues here. The first is later on when someone's being suspended, it mentions they can bring someone with them, but it doesn't say that here. And the second thing is that generally when you do a hearing, it's really important to understand any precipitating event. That's really important with any kind of disciplined adult or child to know what happened before you punched Fred, did he? So I will make a motion if, that page 2.
We already have a motion on the table
okay.
to approve them. If you have suggested wording for the,
So what
for
would member-
revising this, we would bring it up again at another meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Because it started that we were going to pass it and
We
that was
are.
it.
It's, okay, policies are moving dynamic documents. There's nothing precluding us from updating it today and then you bringing back suggested wording to update it again.
But I'd like us to follow our policy, which brings it back anyway. That was my first comment.
Dr. Houle, how can you help us here?
First of all, this policy, the update is in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 70, Section 37H, was the genesis of governing around how suspension and expulsion take place. And then along came 37H and a half, and now 37H and 3/4. Your policy currently has 37H. It does not address 37H and a half, nor does it address 37H and 3/4. This is really language that has been taken straight from the statute in terms of the process around which suspension and/or expulsion might take place. And the biggest changes are the notification by the principal to families of what is to come, that it happens in a different order than it did under 37H. Basically, you could suspend the student, tell the parent later. You have to reverse that process now. So that's really what's driving the genesis of this. Obviously, with handbooks that are 5 years old at this point, we have had a finding on the targeted focus monitoring review. We've seen a preliminary report that we've been allowed to comment on for factual errors. And so there, you will see a finding for the lack of handbooks and for a lack of this policy being in place. So we're trying to address the findings so that once the report becomes final, we can say we have already addressed these things. So having this to be able to put in place in the handbooks that you'll look at next week would be very helpful, for sure, to make sure that we're complying with the law.
Thank you. Secretary Johnson-Musad.
Proposed kind of process suggestion is that I think Dr. Hollins is right to be kind of jealous of the school committee's powers and not wanting to waive I understand the concern about not wanting to waive the first reading, but if we vote to waive the first reading and approve this as is, I'd be more than happy to convene the policy committee to take a fresh look at it, and then we could go through the process again with any amendments that people have. So we would be able to come into compliance with the law, but also give the school committee a full opportunity to discuss it in both the first and we'd essentially have three readings of it, one tonight where we're kind of approving it on a fast track, and then the first and second reading for a revision of the policy.
Thank you. Dr. Houle?
Yeah, and again, just because this speaks to the process as it should take place so that families are notified of the fact that the old policy is the old way of do the action, then notify, versus we notify before we take the action in this. I think that's a significant enough procedural change that families should be aware that that's happening in the handbooks that you'll review and look at next week.
Thank you. Member Hollins.
I have a procedural question I'd like to ask Member Johnson-Musad. A motion was made to approve the policy, and I actually took the time to read it. I'm very interested in students being expelled. And I had a wording suggestion. So what would be the proper process with a motion on the floor for me to try and convince my colleagues that it should have wording that says the student can bring something with them to the hearing?
I think you could ask for a friendly amendment to the motion to say to approve it with the following changes, and make the very specific language changes that you wish to make.
May I do that?
Please, go ahead.
Okay.
That's what we're doing.
So I would like to make a friendly amendment to page 2. There aren't page numbers, and that's under the principal's hearing, that a phrase be added, that the student can bring someone,
Where are you adding this?
well,
Do you mean long-term suspension?
no, I'm under principal hearing for short-term suspension.
Short-term, thank you.
It is mentioned later on for other components, you could bring someone. I don't know, wherever the appropriate place is, I don't know that.
Okay, so that's what's hard about how you're doing this, is that you need to come
Okay, so let
prepared
me-
with where you would want to
I-
put it
I
and
actually-
offer it as a friendly amendment.
Actually, I'm prepared, so.
Okay, so where do you want to put it?
The student shall have an opportunity to present information. The student, this is the third paragraph, may bring someone with them
That's what you're adding after the student shall have an opportunity to present
and shall have an
information.
opportunity to present information. Yes. For now, that's my
The
suggestion.
student also shall have an opportunity to present information, and you want comma, bring an ally, bring what? Bring who? Bring a witness, bring a,
This is why,
this is
Dr.
why we
Alting-
need to approve it and then bring it back to a subcommittee, because this is, it's confusing, the public can't follow along. You came prepared in some way, but not to tell us where you actually wanted to put it, which is the
I-
piece
I
that's
didn't-
needed.
I didn't know we would be adopting this tonight.
Okay. Dr. Houle, go ahead.
Just to note, there may be a way to do this within the fourth paragraph, because it says the principal would provide the parent guardian, if present, an opportunity to discuss the student's conduct and offer information. So it does kind of speak to that, if the parent or guardian is present, chooses to be present. And I do know, and I'm sure Karen can attest to the fact that oftentimes the parent can't be present, but the parent's on the phone while this is happening. So that there is that consult with the parent or guardian of the student.
So if we just, in that first section of that paragraph, the principal shall provide the parent guardian or other witness, if present, would that fulfill, Member Hollins, what you're looking for?
No, some students.
Okay, so we're going to move to
But I mean,
authorize this as a draft policy for now, and we will have a meeting where those changes can be made. Member Karen,
Can I ask this question? I know it's going to make this go a little longer, but
that's fine.
the way I read this is that actual part, so in the second one, the long-term suspension, it says at a minimum, in addition to the rights afforded a student in the short term, which is all of that stuff we just read, now they are allowed to bring a witness, layperson, or counsel. Not for the short term. So if that is actually the case, they are allowed to. We do need to make that change, and we can do it later. It does not need to be right at this exact moment. But if that's not the case, since this came directly from the law, then I want to be sure I understand the question also. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I
yeah.
can, we can certainly do a little more research on this, but this, I went into the MASC, master policy manual and pulled this right from the policy manual that's there. I checked a couple of other school districts. It is worded the same as this, and so, like I say, it's pretty much a direct quote from 37H1/2 and 37H3/4.
Right, so the way it reads now is that they're actually not allowed to bring someone who's not a parent or guardian to the first hearing, but at a long term there are. So it says the principal shall provide, they're allowed to bring information and they're allowed to provide parent guardian information, but in the long term, it says they're all allowed to have a counsel or layperson or to produce witnesses, but they're not actually allowed any of that in the short-term suspension.
And again, the nature of the offense is what determines the
Right.
length of the
Right.
out of school
So it does come
time.
down to law. If it's actually
Yeah.
not allowed, then we wouldn't be adding it, and if it is allowed, we
Yeah,
should.
I'll certainly have legal counsel
Next
review this
policy
for us. Moving
Thank you
forward.
for that clarification, Member Karen.
Thank you.
Other comments on this?
The only thing is, I think that the motion was to approve it, but I think we need to, I'd ask for a friendly amendment to waive the first reading and approve it.
Who- Did you make the motion? I think you did.
Oh, did I? No, I don't think so.
No? Member Karen? Are you okay with amending the motion, friendly amendment,
Yes.
waive the first reading and approve? Okay. And Susan Farber, you have that? Okay. Any further? Okay, so let's first recap. We're voting on this as waiving a first reading, second reading to approved as a draft policy, which it says right on it. And Member Johnson Musad has offered to pull together have a meeting of the policy subcommittee in order to take up any additional changes. And it sounds like there's a little bit of research that needs to happen to make sure we have the changes that we're looking at be in line with the platform 9 3/4 law, right? Okay. Just trying to find all the muggles in the room, that's all. Okay. Let's go to a, no one's getting my Harry Potter jokes, huh?
Got it.
I don't want to know that. Okay, so all those in favor of draft proposal JIC on student discipline being passed. Let's do a voice vote. Say aye.
Aye.
That sounded like everybody to me. Aye. There we go. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Oh, we've got some job descriptions. So we're on to section D on policy and program, personnel and collective bargaining. We did
Actually, I
meet-
think that's a formatting error on the agenda that I just noticed. So personnel and policy is
Okay.
its own.
Well, you're going to have to leave on the 22nd, then, sorry. So it actually should be E.
Wow.
Instead of 2, it should be E, personnel and collective bargaining, but that's fine. We did take a look in the subcommittee at 3 job
Actually-
descriptions, and,
Actually, 2, just the assistant director and then the food service one. We
oh,
tabled the
that's
director.
right, we didn't
yep.
do the director one. That's, thank you. And I do want to take these up separately. They are in your packet. They are in the materials that were posted on the website. Let's do the Assistant Director of Student Services first. I'd like to, I'd entertain a motion to approve as presented the updated job description for Assistant Director of Student Services.
So moved.
That was Member Karen, and a second.
Second.
Secretary Johnson Musad. Discussion.
Question?
Member Hollins, I was waiting. What can we do for you?
Was the Director of Student Services involved in writing this?
Yes. She, along with Dr. Ekstrom, not to be confused with Vice
Member
Chair
Ekstrom.
that they worked on this together. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay, let's move to a vote. All those, any opposed or abstentions? So that would be a unanimous vote to approve Assistant Director of Student Services. I would now entertain a motion to approve the job description for Director of Food and Nutrition Services as presented.
So moved.
Member Karen, and a second? A second by Member Wall, thank you. And any discussion of this one?
Yes.
Member Hollins.
At the top, it has 9 qualifications. And on page 2, after item 23, which is a little confusing, 23 says you have to have a valid driver's license, but after that is something that's not numbered, physically able to carry objects weighing 50 pounds. I think that's a qualification, and it should be listed as number 10. There are some jobs where being able to lift something is actually a qualification of the job, like an essential function, and it's just sitting down here after number 23. I'm not complaining, I just think
I
that,
think, isn't this a formatting thing, and it should be
Yes.
like the bolded ones at the bottom,
Yeah,
right?
it's actually, it's its own
Yeah,
thing,
it's its
and it-
own
yeah.
thing that we put in all the
Physical
job
requirements,
descriptions.
yep.
Yeah.
And
So it's
so-
formatted incorrectly. It should be bold, like terms of employment, performance evaluation. That's like a standard
Yeah.
ADA compliant
Yep.
way of listing
Right.
job.
So it would be that the person should be able to carry objects weighing up to 50 pounds, and that reasonable accommodations would be made. And I can certainly make sure that the language is
So-
prettier.
so it's not a qualification for this job to be able
Well,
to?
it's related to the pieces of the ADA piece. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a food service director. I don't know if they could find someone else to lift the 50 pounds for them. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people who work in food services who could certainly help out with that, or custodial staff if we had to make that ADA accommodation. But usually, the physical, you know.
Every job description
yeah,
has them.
sort of
like
at the
that.
bottom
Yeah.
of the list.
Yeah. I think it is, does it need to be I don't think it needs to be a qualification. I do think it's something that should be listed the way that it's, like I said, it's just misaligned on the page. The other one, oh, it wasn't this one. I think I saw it in the something with the director of facilities one.
So what I would offer to the committee to do is to change that bottom piece so that it says physical requirements in bold, that the job requires someone to physically be able to lift, carry objects weighing up to 50 pounds, and that reasonable accommodations would be made if necessary.
That was my question, if it was an expectation.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Rita Gardner.
I just, speaking of formatting, there's a bullet underneath it that looks like it must have actually been a notation.
Yeah, and again, I'll fix that so it,
Said physically able to carry objects weighing 50 pounds.
Yeah.
To add reasonable accommodations.
Yeah.
When you reformat it, that's what you will put up.
yes, that reasonable accommodations would be made for that requirement.
So it will say physical requirement.
Yes.
Cool, got it.
Apologies for not catching that.
That's all right.
We'll make that right. I know.
See you on the 23rd. Eh.
Yeah, thanks for leading us through the pandemic and all.
All right, any further discussion of this job description? Okay, so we'll move to a vote. Any abstentions or no votes? All right, so that passes unanimously. And we have done everything except set the meeting dates and times, and Secretary Johnson Musad doesn't want to do that in our session here, and I don't blame him, because we could be in for a record meeting time. Oh, not quite.
Chair
Because we have to-
Poyetty, if I might, just under the
Yes.
capital projects right now, is
Yes.
that the parking lot at Newton School has been milled. It will be paved, I think, on the 17th, is
Okay.
what I heard, and that it will be lined on the 19th. So it'll be my parting gift to all of you. So, is that the Newton parking lot will be done. Also,
think I
just to let the
Yes.
committee know that we have had an engineer look at the elevators at Federal Street School, which would be the need to discuss that report and the recommendations for an engineering study to be done on the elevators. So that would be the purpose of that meeting.
Perfect, thank you. And we'll get those scheduled very soon. So I now would like a motion to enter executive session pursuant to MGLC 30A subsection 21A exemption 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and you know I declare. The committee will not return to open session. This is a change from the printed agenda. Can I get a motion to move into executive session? We'll say that's a motion and a second over there. And any discussion? And any no or abstention votes?
Chair Prayati,
Yes.
point of order, you need a roll call vote.
Every time I do this, when will I learn?
What are you going to do on August 23rd?
I know.
I better train Dr. DeBarge
So
on this.
I think Secretary Johnson Musad has already made a mental note. He's going to keep me in line on that one. Let's do a roll call vote to enter executive session, please.
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom, Member Hollins,
Yes?
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prayati,
Yes.
Member Wall. Yes. Mayor Weidergartner. Yes. Motion carries.
Okay, and a motion to adjourn the public session, please.
So moved.
And a second. Member Karen, and roll call vote.
Member Karen,
Yeah.
Yes.
Member Hollins,
Yes?
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prayati.
Yes.
Member Wall. Yes. Mayor Weidergartner.
So we are adjourned from public session at 7:26 PM. We do meet next Wednesday, the 18th, also at 6 PM. That meeting will be remote. Thank you for joining us.